Hi, welcome to Bright Hope Creations. I'm Kara, and today we're going to do some no-line coloring. This is part one of a two-part series, and I have it stamped in black off to the side, so I used floral corners, and the Free Spirits is the name of the fox and frog in the bike, and these are all illustrations from Stacy Yakula for Purple Onion Designs. I stamped the main image, or the piece that I'm working on, with Jellyfish ink from Fawn. It's a nice ink that I can see, but I only have to stamp once, and it really has no real color to it. So the Copic markers seem to blend in and cover it well. So I'm starting my fox with an E11, E13, and E17. And this is the E17, and I'm finding all of my darkest shadows and filling those in just lightly on the sides. I don't really fill in much of the fox at first. And I like to use the E-teens because they are a reddish brown, but I will come in and add more red to this fox with with the R family real soon, but just getting the shape kind of figured out right now. And I'm blending that E17 into the body with the E13. Now there is an E15. I did not use that. I wanted a real contrast to go from the E17 to the E13, and then from the E13 a nice blend to the E11. I used this fox and frog stamp once before with a no-line coloring scene, and I will link that, a link to my blog, the blog post that has that in there, and he's crossing over a bridge with a little stream under it. But I like finding different ways to use stamps so that I have many different designs that I can use them for. And on this card, I'm not even going to put a sentiment on here because I'll put the sentiment inside when I decide what it's going to be for, because this one could be for many things. All right, well, this is the R02, and that is reddening up my E11, and you can see a real light change in there. It's not going to be hugely red, but this is the R05, and that's what I'm going to use to get into those darker areas. And what I like about the R0s is that they're kind of an orangey red or tomato red, and at first I didn't care for them at all. I only kind of gravitated towards the R20s because they were more of a red to me, like Christmas red. But I have found ways that these different reds kind of play into blending, and especially for something like this where I'm putting it together with browns and the E11, 13, the red browns especially. So I'm now just going over those same areas with the brown color, the E11, and kind of continuing to blend that further into the body and bringing it out more and more. I think I've said this before, but I don't like to go all the way to the end first time around, because I find that if I do that, then I keep blending, and the areas that I want to stay light start to get more blended and dark. So I keep those white until I'm ready to finish to the end of that part of my coloring. Now we're coming to the tail, and I'm pulling over the black lined one to show there's a kind of a bend in his tail. So I wanted to make sure that I can show that. And I'm going back up to the top. I think I'm at the point where I'm completing that part. So that's what I'm doing there. and just kind of giving a little texture by dotting it and going back to the tail. I want to kind of clean up some of those lines, make sure the curves look right, and then redden things up again. So I think this is like a two-step process of E, then R, then E, then R, then E. So that's more than a two-step process. But here we are back on the tail, and I'm using kind of a flicking motion coming away from his body to show kind of the motion that hair on the tail would go. And that hair is going to be bigger or bushier, so I really want to show some changes in the colors. So back to the red, the light one, the R02, to redden up in the body and on the tail. And I'm showing the entire coloring of the fox and frog today. I just know that I've been asked to do that. Ooh, this is the R00, so trying to keep it light at the end. All right, now back to the E11, and I think this is where I finish on this part of his face. But anyway, I'm showing the full fox and frog today, but with that bicycle, I'm going to show you parts of it because that got really long and kind of boring. So I hope this isn't too boring for you. If it is, please do not hesitate to speed it up on your settings. I think I talk slow enough that you could still understand that, or you can mute me too. That's fine. All right, so we're getting into the final details. So getting out the E17 and putting just little lines, getting that dark area back in where it was blended out, and just some areas I'm just touching the area so that I don't have to blend it out. It can remain, and sometimes I have to blend it. So here's the E13 blending that out and just giving it some of that final detail, making sure that there's enough contrast in the dark to light. So now we can start with the warm grays, and I left the tips of his ears so that those could be a white with this warm gray, and also on his face and the other areas that would be white. And using the warm gray because I think it looks good with the reds. You could use cool gray too, or the neutrals, but I just thought this warm gray kind of had more of a cream color to it, and I like that with the red. So now a little bit darker with the W1, shading under his neck and under his arm. So anywhere that I think would be a little darker, and then just giving some around on his face, giving texture to that fur so that there's a bit of a difference. And then back to the W0 to kind of blend that in then. And again, just trying to add a little texture in what I'm doing with some little lines. And then now I can get to the very ends with the W00 and kind of blend out some of my lines. I want this texture, or these little lines, to look like they're part of this fur and not just lines on top of the fur. So now it's time for the ear, and I'm using a C8 and a C6 to just show that it's dark in there. And then back to that E17, I want to kind of bring those two together. So at this point, I think I should go really dark. So there's the 100, and that shows the very depth of his ear. And then just trying to get the look of where the inside of the ear meets the outside of the ear. And I fuss with that for a little bit with different shades of the warm gray, and now I'm using that W2 as a bit of a darker cream color for the white, and then coming in with the warm gray, and you know, even in the red areas, kind of graying that up a little bit around the edges, just so it's not such a stark color, but it looks like it's a little more natural. Well, to me anyway. For a fox that's riding a bike, right? And now I'm going to just go back and do a little more texturing on his face and take the colorless blender to kind of whiten up some areas and add a little texture there too. And here's my dark, again, the W2 to give that shadow, and then blending that out with the W0. And now that I have his white fur kind of texturized there, I wanted to go back to the tail and just add a little bit more there so that you could see some individual parts of the tail, little, I guess, locks of fur there. And so that's where I decide to end this with the fox, is getting his tail all set. And now we'll start on the frog. So this frog, I'm bringing the black lines real close, and I'm showing you it a little more close up so that you can see, because he's a small fellow and he has some real fine details, like those skinny little arms. And he even has a leg that's bent there with his knee by the basket area. So I want to make sure that that shows through, because those little details really make this frog a real character. So I'm trying to be careful with that. And this is the YG11, and I'm kind of just coloring it all because I'm trying to map it out. And now this is the YG17, which is way darker than that 11. And I'm coming right in with that dark one because I want to get into those areas, and I don't have a lot of room to blend. So I don't want to start blending easy. I'm going to get right in there. So the 17 and now the YG13 to blend those dark areas out into the body, and then blend that even further with the YG11. When I'm doing a very small area like this and I really want to get those details, I rely on that line drawing, or it's the stamp packaging sometimes, but I rely on a black line drawing of it so that I can keep to the real character of the illustration. So he's starting to take shape, and I'm able to blend out a little further and further into the body, and just trying to make sure that I can show some real definition between those arms and the little leg there, and even how his little fingers are kind of stretched out, or his little hands. Yeah, that's not really anatomically correct, but you know what I mean. I am coloring just a little line or two, and then I pull my marker away, look back over at the line drawing, color in a couple of lines, and then pull it away and look again. And that's kind of just I slow down when I'm doing those little areas, trying to get the right look to them. And now I can blend all the way out with that YG11 and give him the rest of his face. And then I look at this and I think, oh, I made him a little bit, I don't know, rounder than the image. And so I'm coming in with the colorless blender and trying to just decrease that line a little bit so he doesn't look so bulbous. But in the end, it's small and not a real big deal. So here's the YG03, and I'm giving him a little texture, kind of the way his texture is shown on the black and white drawing there. All right, onto this bicycle, and I'm really just filling in the bike and decided to go with, this is a BV 31, and I'm going to use the BV zeros, but 31 is more of a blue violet than the BV 00s. They are a little pinker. So I wanted the bluer look. So I started with the BV 31 and now the BV 01 and the BV 02. I decided I could go a little darker for the shadows there. And here's the BV 04. That's my darkest, to get into those real defining areas, to give some shadow there, give some shading to the different parts of the bike. Now that I decided how dark I wanted to go, which is the 04, I want to make a quick contrast to the BV 31 because it's such narrow areas, and I want to make sure that there's a real difference from one side of the shaded area to the non-shaded area, and then blend those in together where I can. So with the BV 02 here, and then kind of just clean up my lines there with the BV 31. Now that I have all of the colored parts pretty much done, I'm going to start with the metal parts, and I'm going to use a cool gray so that it's, I don't know, it's more silver or whatever kind of metal they make these parts out of, and being real selective so that I can see these lines and I can differentiate these lines one from the other. So kind of a contrast to get a darker section and then a lighter section together so that I can still see my lines. I don't want to lose those. And then once I have those figured out, I can kind of blend them together so that you can see the area where the chain connects and up to the pedal. And there are layers to the metal at this point, at this place, and so I really want to make sure that you can see the difference between those different circles as they layer on top of each other. This stamp set, or this stamp itself, is one that I love it. It's, you know, it's aptly named Free Spirits, and these two just look like they're having the time of their life, and it just reminds me of bike riding and having a great time. And I remember being in the seat behind my mom when she was riding a bike, and I was in the carrier. But all through the ages, I remember I enjoy riding bikes and the freedom that it gave me as a kid to get around. And then now with my family, my kids, I like to still ride, and I love to see them out riding their bikes too. So here's his pedal and some of his seat, putting that in, and just trying to give a little bit to show that that's his seat, and just kind of clean up my lines. And now with these tires, it is a circle, and you would think I could just follow the lines, but that's not so easy for me when I'm doing circles like this. So I'm just trying to be real careful and turning the paper constantly so that I have a good angle for curving around that circle. And I'm going to leave it alone now and start on that basket. And so I'm using E30s for the basket, and also the little bit of wood on the carrier in the back that's kind of under his tail. You'll see that a little bit better later. But trying to follow the way the basket is in the illustration. So with the wrap around the top and the bottom, and then kind of a woven look for the middle part. And I want the middle part to eventually be a little darker so that the woven areas, or the wrapped around areas on the top and bottom, kind of stick out, look like they're coming out from the woven main part of the basket. But before I darken that inner area, I want to just get all of the details around that wrapped around area on the top and bottom, so that I don't have to really go back into them once I start in the middle. And here I can put in just little lines to show kind of that woven part of the inner part of the basket, and now just shade it to get it darker. So I start building the depth with this E34, and then the E35 really shows the depth, makes the outer rims kind of pop out more. And then as I go forward, a little have it a little lighter. All right, there's a little metal area there that connects the basket to the bike, and now I'm trying to fix up my fender, and I don't like the shape of my front wheel, so I'm trying to fix that. But I think in the end, when the ink blending is over it, it's not really going to be seen. So this is the little chain, and sometimes I will make an imaginary line on the black line drawing so that I can kind of follow the same line on the other one. Just kind of feel the way that line would go. Details like their faces, the eyes and mouth, and then the spokes of the bike, those will all be in colored pencil at the end of the next video. So I hope you join me then, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.